Hello, I'm Jazmine Maldonado, and welcome to People in Perspective. My guest on this program is Anita Alvarez, Cook County State's Attorney. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so to start things off, I would like to ask, what is it like to be the first woman to serve as Cook County State's Attorney?
The Cook County State's Attorney's Office is the second largest prosecutor's office in the entire nation. So we're second only to Los Angeles. So it's a big office. We have a lot of responsibility. We have a lot of duties. What is it like to be the first woman? Well, it's great to be the first woman. I've been in the office since I got out of law school, so I'm a career prosecutor. And when I decided to run 7 years ago, no woman had ever run for the position before, but I knew that I was qualified to do the job, and here I am serving in my second term as the state's attorney. And being a woman, I think we bring different perspectives into how we handle things, and as opposed to maybe males, and particularly law is a male-dominated field. So women each and every day are bringing new perspectives, new ways of handling things, new ways of managing, which I think is a benefit.
Okay, so what would you like to say to women who aspire to join a field that are traditionally dominated by men?
I think it's important that women and young women like yourself aspire to achieve great things. I think every young girl today should be able to chase her dreams, to be able to get the education that's important to get her to that role, because we have a lot to contribute to society. One thing I always like to say to young girls is that don't ever let anybody tell you no. Don't ever let anybody tell you no. Believe in your dreams. You know your qualifications. You know what it takes to get to where you want to be, and chase those dreams. And sometimes in life, you have to take risks. Running my first campaign was a big risk, and people didn't expect me to win, but here I am. And so there are some times in life you have to take risks, but you got to get there, and don't be afraid to take those risks, because they're worth it. And education is the number one thing that gets you to where you want to be. It's the key that opens many, many doors and puts you on a level playing field. So number one, you go for that education. You get your education, and in whatever your passion may be. It might be broadcasting. It might be law. It might be medicine. It might be police work. Whatever it might be. Don't ever lose sight of the fact that you can achieve what you want to achieve.
So with being in a male-dominated area, would you consider yourself like a feminist?
Well, in my role as state's attorney, and there are many, more and more you see more elected state's attorneys across the nation who are female. But for the most part, it's still dominated by men. And I think sometimes we have to prove ourselves maybe a little bit harder than the men do. And that's unfortunate. But again, I think as women grow in the profession of law, whether it's in public service, like my field, or whether it's in corporate law, or working, in a large law firm that does commercial litigation, whatever it might be. I think women, little by little, we are gaining, strides, or making strides in the profession. So we can't lose sight of the fact that we still like to see more and more women at the top of their profession, and at the top of law firms, being the managing partner, being state's attorneys like myself. I think you have to overcome sometimes people second guess whether or not the woman is qualified, but clearly we are. And I think we can handle a lot of things. We've proven it in every profession, and I think little by little you'll see the glass ceilings broken in every profession, not just law, but in business, in medicine, in journalism, all over the place.
So, being the state's attorney, what types of cases have you prosecuted, and what has been the most gratifying case you have worked on during your career?
I have prosecuted everything from minor offenses, misdemeanor offenses, to most serious felonies, which murders and sexual assaults. I worked my way up through the office from a young assistant to the chief deputy before I ran for the state's attorney's spot. So I handled everything. I spent 4 years in the gang unit where I prosecuted gang-related homicides, which I saw a lot of things that I don't like to see, and so many mothers losing their children because of gang violence. It's a sad job sometimes for what we see. So I have handled everything. The one case that stands out that really is very close, near and dear to my heart, is the case, and you're too young to remember this, but your parents might, and it was the sexual assault of a little girl. She was 9 years old, and she lived in the Cabrini Green housing projects, and the case became known as the Girl X case because her mom did not want her name in the media. And that case is very special for many different reasons. But the little girl was a normal, happy little girl before she was brutally sexually assaulted, strangled, suffocated, left for dead. The offender poured roach spray down her throat. And as a result of the horrific things that she went through, she can no longer see, she can no longer speak, she's confined to a wheelchair. So when I was on the case, I had to get to know her, number one, and try the case. And she communicates in a very special way. And she communicates because she can no longer speak. She communicates through her eyes, through her eye movement. And basically what she does is she spells out all of her words through her eye movement. And it's called the eye gaze system. And she spells, you give her the letters of the alphabet, and when you reach the appropriate letter she wants to spell, she looks up. And this is yes, and this is no. And so it's a very special way of communicating with her. And my partner and I had to learn that. We had to establish a rapport with her. She testified in that manner in court, and it was the first time ever in the history of Illinois and history of the country that anybody testified in that manner. The defendant was convicted of aggravated predatory criminal sexual assault, and she is a young lady now. She's no longer a child, but she still remains a part of my life. And she is someone who inspires me because despite all the horrific things that happened to her, she has a smile and a laughter that can fill this room. And so I always remind myself that when you think you're having a bad day and you think things are bad, you think of someone like her who has overcome so much and had to at a young age. And still have a great sense of humor. And so that, all the cases I've handled are special and important to me, but that one stands out for a variety of different reasons.
Nice. So what kind of reasons does it stand out for you?
Because, I still have a relationship with her. I still go and see her. And usually as a prosecutor, you don't maintain all of those relationships with victims because it's hard on the victims to relive what they went through. And again, for just in the legal aspect of it, what that case meant, again, her testifying in that way that had never been done before, the fact that the court allowed it, and we were able to do it, it stands out. And the other aspect of it was when we were getting ready to try the case, the media was attacking us, saying we had the wrong guy. And I always said that if you spent 5 minutes with this little girl, you knew we had the right guy. And so that's, so for all those reasons, it stands out.
Nice. So can you tell us a little bit how you became interested in your career?
I was born and raised in Chicago. I grew up in the Pilsen neighborhood. I'm the first in my family to go to college and get a college degree. So did I know when I was in high school what I was going to do? Absolutely not. Did I even know as a freshman in college that I knew I was going to go to law school? I did not. I was actually a social work major. I always felt that I needed to be in a profession where I could help people. I always felt that was my calling, and I started taking criminal justice classes in undergrad. I went to Loyola University for my undergraduate degree, and I think that's where I caught the bug for the criminal justice system. And many of my friends were going to law school, and it was really not my goal. I didn't think I would be going to law school. It was a last-minute decision on my part. So I kind of changed course. I received my undergraduate degree in social work, and then I went to law school. Law school was tough. Law school, for me, in many ways, was culture shock. It was not like undergrad. I had lots of friends in undergrad, and I was very involved in the Latin American Student Organization. And when I got to law school, there was only one other Hispanic in the class and one African American, and so I kind of always felt a little out of place. And my colleagues and my fellow classmates, many of them had family. They came from families whose mothers and fathers were doctors and lawyers and professionals, and that's not my background. I come from very simple beginnings. And so law school was tough. I have to tell you, it was really tough. But I also, again, knew that, you know, being a lawyer, you can give back and you can serve the community. And I also knew that I wanted to go to court and be court. I liked that. I like being in court. So the State's Attorney's Office was a perfect fit. You're helping victims each and every day. That's what we do. We help people who have been the victims of crime, some very horrific crimes. And so we go to court each and every day to speak on their behalf. So I think I've combined my undergraduate degree with my law degree, and it's been a good fit.
What advice would you have for students like me who are looking to go into criminal justice, or for students who don't really plan on going to college?
Mm-hmm. Well, number one, I think it's important. I would encourage every student to go to college. I really do, because I really believe that education is the greatest equalizer. It's the one thing that puts you on a level playing field with everybody else. And it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter whether you come from a wealthy family, you come from a simple family like mine. It's the one thing that puts you in that boardroom as the CEO or in the operating room as the surgeon. It's the one thing. So I would encourage everybody to go to college. For those that are interested in something like criminal justice, again, follow your dreams, follow your heart. I have many friends who got law degrees and work at a firm, and they're not happy. They're miserable. I'm happy in what I'm doing. So I think you need to find your fit and find what interests you, and go for it. And you want to be happy in your profession. Many other of my friends have gone to big law firms and made lots of money, more money than me. But for me, it's never been about the money, and it's been about public service. And so, again, follow your dreams, find a job that makes you happy, and you'll get more out of life.
All right. So do you plan to run for re-election? And if so, what do you plan to work on or focus on if re-elected?
I do plan to run for re-election. In fact, I've already kicked off my re-election campaign. So I'll be seeking my third term as state's attorney. And I think there are a lot of things that we can focus on. The office has changed so much since when I first started and since I took over. We've implemented many, many new programs. And I think what I would like to focus more on, several different things. Community justice centers are community offices that I have, 4 of them, kind of scattered around on the north side of the city, south side, west. But I'd like to open more because they're community offices that allow my assistants to be closer to the communities that they serve, and allows people to basically walk in, ask questions. Sometimes cases are developed out of the issues they bring us. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just helping people and sending them in the appropriate direction. I'd like to expand on the community justice centers. I'd like to expand my diversion programs, because I've been around long enough to see that, unfortunately, we see the hardened criminal. We see the criminal that's on the wrong track, that is doing the shootings, doing the murders. We have to make sure that we are tough on those people who are killing people on the street. But there's the other side. The other side is, what do we do for that 19-year-old who makes one stupid mistake and gets arrested for a burglary to auto or something like that? What do we do? Is it good for him or her to have a felony conviction? I don't think so. So we have, when I took over in 2008, there were only 8 either alternative prosecution or sentencing programs. I've now expanded that to 30. We have 30. I'm also, next week, I'm going to be, it's actually the first week we're going to be doing our new drug deferred prosecution program, because there are people who can be diverted out of the system that don't need to be incarcerated, and if we can divert people out and keep them from coming back, I think we'll all be better for it. So we have to be tough on crime, but we have to be smart on crime. And I think my diversion programs, as I said, I've gone from 8 to 30, and we're continuing to develop new ways to divert people out and hopefully get people treatment when they need it. For example, on the people who are using drugs, I'm not talking about the drug dealers, I'm talking about the users. If we can get them treatment and keep them from coming back in, I think we're all better for it.
And I agree. So what are your thoughts on decreasing the number of illegal guns as it relates to crime in Chicago, and also with regard to the number of mass shootings at schools and across the country?
I think Illinois needs to be tougher on their gun laws. I do. I think that I've tried to get that done in Springfield, and I'm going to continue to try, because I think, again, what we just talked about, diverting people out, people who are nonviolent offenders, I believe in that. But I also believe that those people who are out there with illegal guns and who are committing the shootings need to, be held responsible for what they're doing. Because I don't think we need to lose another 9-year-old child to gun violence. As a mother, I have 4 children. I can only empathize with women who have lost a child to gun violence. It's just unimaginable to have to go through that pain. And that's, I deal with victims each and every day, and I've seen that each and every day. And it's traumatic and it's unfortunate. So I think we have to make sure we have the right gun laws in place. And we're talking about the illegal guns. We're talking about the people, the gang members who are out on the street with the illegal guns. That's what our focus is. I have increased penalties for gang members who are found on the street with a loaded weapon, and that's called the Valadez Law, which is in honor of Chicago police officer Alejandro Valadez, who was killed in the line of duty, responding to call of shots fired. So we have to make sure that the people who are out there shooting up the streets are being held responsible for doing that. And I think to do a better job with that, we have to look at our laws in Illinois, because compared to other states, they're weak.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll be talking about 2 topics that are important to you and important to other people, that are gangs and human trafficking. So please stay tuned. Okay, so when on the topic of gangs rely on recruiting vulnerable young people when looking for new members. So what is it that you best advise can you give to someone who is being pressured?
I think you used the right word, vulnerable. Many of the kids that I see that get involved in the gang life are kids who are vulnerable, who are a little bit lost, or who feel that they don't have the family support at home and think that they can get this support in this gang life. So my advice to any young kid who is feeling pressured to join a gang is you got to be tough and you have to be strong, because the gang life is not the way to go. And if you need to tell the authorities, you need to tell your parents, you need to tell an adult, teachers, or whatever it might be, you have to reach out for help, to have someone help you so they're aware of the fact that you're being pressured. I know it's hard, and I know being a teenager is hard, and I know that many times the gangs recruit their members through all kinds of promises, easy money, selling drugs, and making yourself feel big or good because someone's giving you a gun to hold. But that's not the life. That's not the life at all. And so my advice is you have to believe in yourself. You have to reach out for help. I know it's not easy to go to the police, but tell an adult, tell someone at school, tell your counselor, tell your mother and father, because the reality is, when I was trying those gang cases, what I saw is that you may be big and tough on the street with your gang members, and once you get arrested and once you're charged and you're sitting in court with a murder case, who comes to support you? It's not the gang members. It's your mom, it's your dad, it's your aunt, it's your grandma. That's who's there to support you. Gang members aren't there supporting you when you're sitting in jail, arrested for whatever it might be. So, if you may think that that's your family, It's not. And so the last thing you want to do is put your parents through something like that and be in a position where you're going to lose your life. So it's just not worth it. Crime doesn't pay.
So what would you recommend them to do, like join after-school programs and such like that?
Keep yourself busy, absolutely. Take advantage of whatever after-school program there might be. If it's possible, get a part-time job. Then that way you're not just hanging around looking for something to do. I think it's important for society to have those types of programs available for kids. How about a sport? Join a sports team, whatever it might be, just to keep yourself busy after school, so you don't kind of feel like you're bored and this might be fun and exciting, because it may be fun and exciting for a couple of months, but it gets worse as you go along, and you'll end up where you don't want to be and where your mom and dad don't want you to be, and that's in jail.
Mm-hmm. So you've been recently and before been combating human trafficking, and since it's a top priority during your administration, is Chicago known for being a hotbed of trafficking? And if so, what are these people coming from and being trafficked to?
Chicago ranks number 3 on the National Human Trafficking Hotline, number 3 in the nation. And that's because we are a visitor hub, we're a transportation hub, a convention hub, so we are ripe for this type of crime. And when you talk about human trafficking, people always think that that means someone's brought over from another country and put into the sex trade here in the United States. That does happen, absolutely it does. But that's not what we see on the state side, on the local level. Our human trafficking unit, which we started in 2010 and has gotten national recognition, the victims that we see coming through on cases and operations that we've developed are all born and raised right here. They are primarily minority women. They are African American. They are Latinas. Maybe some girls come over from Indiana and some come down from Wisconsin, but they're all local and they're all born and raised right here. The sex traffickers understand who to recruit. We used the word vulnerable earlier, and it's the same kind of thing. They're on the internet looking for that vulnerable 13-year-old who might be posting stuff about being disenchanted with her life and her parents, and they know who to friend and who to start chatting up. And before you know it, this young girl is meeting somebody over at a mall only to never go home again, to find herself now being trafficked. They recruit right on the street. Again, they know what they're looking for. And what we've seen is that it's a problem that people need to talk about, because people need to know that it happens to our children, born and raised right here. And it doesn't just happen to people being brought over from another country. What we've seen in the trafficking, girls as young as 12 years old, and as a mother, I know that no 12-year-old is out there prostituting herself, right? Mm-hmm. No. Somebody's putting her there, somebody's abusing her, somebody's making money. What we've seen also is the involvement of gangs. Gangs have come to realize that you can sell a person over and over and over again in one day. Once you sell out your drug stash, you're done until you get that replenished, right? Mm-hmm. So they have gotten into the business of human trafficking because they think it's under the radar. They think they're not on the street going to get shot at because of a turf war over drugs, that they can make more money this way. So it's unfortunate that we're seeing these young girls being preyed upon. But I'm proud of what we've developed in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, our human trafficking unit and the human trafficking task force that we're a part of with our partners at the United States Attorney's Office. We have developed what has now become known as the Chicago approach as to how we handle these cases, and combining everything we learned in prosecuting domestic violence cases and everything we learned in prosecuting organized crime and financial crime cases, and kind of put that two together, and that's become known as the Chicago approach, so that we handle these cases, we treat these young women, and there's men too as well, as the victims that they are, and not as offenders. We treat them as victims, and we center that case with their best interest in mind, getting them connected to social services that they need, trying to keep them out of that life, and then we build our evidence against the bad guy in a different way. And so we've had some successful operations. My assistants train other local prosecutors across the nation on the Chicago approach. And so I'm very proud of what we're doing, and I'm proud of the fact that we're even talking about it, because I think people need to talk about it. And our young girls today need to be aware that yes, this does happen, and be careful of who you friend on Facebook, and who, you know, if there's an older guy trying to friend you, be careful, because unfortunately we've seen it happen to many young girls.
How would you advise like how some girls are on the computer and talking to people and random people on Facebook and Instagram and everything? How would you advise them to stay safe besides not telling their personal business and everything?
Well, that's what they should not do, is tell their personal business. They should be very careful of who they chat with, you know, on social media. Social media has, and I know the younger generation, that's how you guys communicate. But social media could be good in some ways, but it's bad in a lot of ways. And and so you should not be too open about your personal information on social media, because you never know who's watching you and who's going to try to get to you. So you should, you know, you can communicate with your friends. I think you should keep your friends, it should be a smaller group of friends that you concentrate on, that you're allowed to see, or that you allow to see your particular stuff. You have to be, you know, have those privacy settings. You have to make sure that you're being smart on the computer. And, you know, parents of younger kids need to, you know, kind of make sure that their kids aren't doing something or on some kind of website that could be dangerous to them.
So would you say that some parents should check their their daughters and sons' phones, their computers, and everything?
Well, I know a teenager doesn't want to hear that, but I think they should, because it's for your own safety, and because again, we've seen this happen, and it happens quickly, and so you should be aware of what your kids are doing. But I think someone who's a senior in high school has the wherewithal to be careful, mm-hmm. and should be able to make sure that she is not sharing too much, or being too vulnerable on the internet.
So, with being Latina, has it always been not easy, but it's been hard, obviously, going through everything and growing up where you've grown up? Has it been extremely hard, or would you recommend some other Latina would she be able to do it as well?
I think she'd be able to do it, but has it been hard? It has been hard. And I mentioned earlier, when I got to law school, I kind of felt out of place, and mm-hmm. I kind of felt like, oh my God, I'm taking out loans, and I don't feel like I can do this, and I have nothing in common with these other classmates of mine. So you're going to go through periods like that where you're the only one in the class. And when I started in the office, I remember one time in a branch court, someone asked me if I was a Spanish interpreter. Those kinds of things happen. But again, I think those kinds of things only make you stronger, because you know that you belong. That's the number. I guess that's my message to every young Latina there. Don't let anybody discourage you. You do belong at that table. You do belong, whatever it might be. And be confident in yourself, because sometimes you do feel like you have to prove yourself maybe more than the guy next to you, and that might be true, but it's not something that you can't overcome, as long as you have confidence in your abilities, and in what you can achieve. Sometimes we may have to push harder than others, but it's not that it's not attainable and it's not doable. I mean, I'm here, so it's doable.
Okay, so sadly that's all the time we have today. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, Ms. Alvarez, and I'm Jazmine Maldonado, and this is People in Perspective. Thank you for watching.